up and moving westward.
So wrote a traveler heading west across the Appalachians after the War of 1812. To prove his point, our traveler had only to look at a map of the United States like the one you see here. By 1819, land-hungry settlers had formed 7 new states on the western side of the Appalachians. Congress had provided for the formation of new states in the Northwest Ordinance of 1797. This law not only outlined the steps leading to statehood, it also banned slavery north of the Ohio River. As a result, the new states formed north of that great waterway, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, were all free states. Those states formed south of the Ohio River, Kentucky, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Mississippi, all allowed slavery. In 1819, 2 more western territories, Alabama and Missouri, applied to Congress for statehood, both of them as slave states. No one in Congress questioned whether Alabama should be admitted with slavery. After all, Alabama was located deep in the South and was surrounded by other slave states. Besides, for years, there had been an unspoken agreement in Congress to keep the number of slave states and free states equal. The admission of Illinois the year before had upset this balance. By voting to accept Alabama as a slave state, Congress was able to make both sides equal again. But what about Missouri? That was another question, at least for many Northerners. To see why, look at its location on the map. You can see that most of Missouri lies north of the point, where the Ohio River flows into the Mississippi. On the eastern side of the Mississippi River, slavery was not allowed north of that point. Shouldn't the same limit be applied to lands west of the Mississippi, asked Northerners? And if it's not, what is there to keep slaveholders from overrunning all of Louisiana territory? The vision of a block of slave states stretching from the Mississippi all the way to the Rocky Mountains was enough to give some Northerners nightmares. When the bill to make Missouri a state came before Congress, Representative James Talmadge of New York decided he had to keep that nightmare from happening. Talmadge introduced an amendment to the statehood bill. It said that Missouri could become a state provided
that the further introduction of slavery be prohibited, and that all children of slaves born within the said state shall be freed at the age of 25.
Talmadge's amendment triggered what one reporter called an interesting and pretty wild debate. It was not long before that debate spread beyond the halls of Congress to the entire country. White Southerners greeted the Talmadge Amendment with a roar of protest. What right, they asked indignantly, does Congress have to decide whether a new state should be slave or free? That decision belongs to the people of each state. Besides, if Congress is allowed to meddle with slavery in Missouri, might it not be tempted to try to abolish slavery elsewhere? And for the South, that could be a disaster of unimaginable size. While Northerners scoffed at such fears, whites in the South took them very seriously. Already the North had more votes in the House of Representatives than the South. Only in the Senate did the 2 sections have equal voting power. As long as this was true, Southern senators could defeat any attempts by Congress to interfere with slavery. But if Missouri entered the Union as a free state, the South would lose its power to block bills in the Senate. To many Southerners, this was unthinkable. In the North, the Missouri question awakened strong feelings against slavery. Many towns and cities sent petitions to Congress condemning slavery as unchristian, immoral, and unconstitutional. The petitioners called on Congress to keep this evil from spreading like a plague into unsettled territories. Representative Arthur Livermore of New Hampshire spoke for many Northerners when he said,
"An opportunity is now presented to prevent the growth of a sin which sits heavy on the soul of every one of us. By embracing this opportunity, we may retrieve the national character and, in some degree, our own. But if we suffer it to pass, let us at least be consistent and declare that our Constitution was made to impose slavery and not to establish liberty."
The Talmadge Amendment was approved in the House, where Northerners were in the majority. In the Senate, however, Southerners were able to defeat the amendment. The 2 houses were deadlocked. and they would remain so as the 1819 session of Congress drew to a close.